Do you want to know the most often asked question I get as a list agent anytime I'm selling a home? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to break it down for you. Hi, my name is Laura Griffin. I'm a top-selling real estate agent in the Northern Virginia and Loudoun County area. I'm with Loudoun living at Pearson Smith Realty. I also run a very popular moms group called the Loudoun Moms, and we're 10,000 moms strong here in Loudoun County. I list a lot of houses every year, and there is one question I get asked all the time by my sellers, and that is, what conveys with the house? Well, conveyance means you are conveying an item, property, from the seller to the buyer. But anything that's affixed to the house conveys. And so that adds to a lot of questions about what stays and what goes with the house. So I'm going to break down some of the top areas where we get a lot of questions, and sometimes they can add to some contention within the transaction. So if you can avoid it at the beginning, you'll be golden all the way through the transaction. So let's get into it. The first is curtains and window treatments. So on our contracts here in Virginia, there is a box, and if you check it, it's window treatments convey. Well, what is that? So that's going to be your rods, your blinds, and your curtains. So it all goes together. When you think about it, when a buyer comes to see your property, they're really taking it in, imagining themselves living here. Maybe they really fall in love with your, navy blue curtains in your family room. Well, how disappointed are they going to be the day of closing when they're not there any longer? So think about it before you sell your house. Do you want to keep the curtains or do you want to take them with you? If you want to take them with you, that's great, but also keep in mind, they may not fit in the new space. I don't know how many times I've moved, and my husband laughs at me every time because I want to keep the curtains. And they never fit in the other house. We don't have enough windows. We're short some, can't find them any longer. Whatever it happens to be, they're too short, they're too long. So save yourself the hassle, leave the curtains. Now, if you have a nursery or a child's room and it matches the bedding, then I would suggest taking those with you. They might fit because usually windows are kind of standard with anywhere from 1 to 3 windows, but still think about it. So the curtain rods, the hardware, the brackets, the mini blinds, and the curtains will convey unless you specify. Now, if you're going to get your house completely repainted because you're listing and say you want to take the curtains with you, just take them down. I say take them down now, have the painter patch the holes and repaint the house, and that will probably save any type of grievance later about the curtains, whether they convey or whether they don't convey. The next is TV mounts. So TV mounts stay with the house because you think about it, they're bolted into the house, right? And they're never just like one bolt. It's always like 4 or 5 or 6, these heavy duty, like really hard, long bolts, right? And if you're like my husband, when he puts up the TV, sometimes the mount's not right, so you have to take it off the wall and put it back in, and there's all these little extra holes, right? So the TV mount, because it's bolted into the property, stays with the house. Of course, the TV would come off of it, but the mount stays. I also recommend leaving the mount and making sure that everyone knows that it stays, because you don't want to get down to closing. This used to happen, and you left the TV mount, and the buyer's like, well, I didn't want this TV mount here. I want you to take it, and I want a credit because I want it patched and painted and all the things. So leave the TV mount with it. And I always just add a little line that all TV mounts convey. They're not in the contract, but I like to spell it out just so it's not missed and it's really clear to everybody. The next is smart devices. How many homes nowadays have rings and cameras and Nest thermostats and all the things, right? So all that technology is affixed to the house, right? It's bolted in, so it stays with the house. So ring cameras, ring doorbells, Nests, some of those really fancy plugs that talk to your iPhones and all those things, they all stay with the house. And I like to list them out in my contracts because sometimes it's not specific about what would convey. So I always make sure I list out the rings. If there's 4 exterior cameras, make sure that you locate, if there's a Nest thermostat, put 2 Nest thermostats in there. But now if you want to take those items with you, not a problem. You just need to tell everyone up front, make sure it's part of the contract with the buyer. Say, Nest thermostat does not convey, and then you will have to replace it. Or save yourself the grief now and just take all that stuff down, patch it, replace it, especially like the expensive thermostats. That way there's no question asked later on. Now, the laws have changed in Virginia in the contracts, and it does talk about smart devices do stay with the house, but I still like to spell them out just so we're all clear about how many cameras there are or how many things there are. But also know that you're required now as the seller to deactivate your device. So the day of closing, you need to deactivate the rings and all the things, the cameras, everything from your smart device, so the buyer can then take control of it. So this is to stop all those sellers who maybe get a little upset at the closing table and decide to change the heater up to like 90 degrees right in the house, so that way the buyer's roasting, or drop the AC down really cold so they're freezing. So just make sure that you're turning off all accesses. If you have booklets on things or can reset them to default, to factory default, that's even better, but make sure that those are left for the buyer if you have them. If not, a lot of them are easy to find online. So these kind of go over the major conveyances where there tends to be an issue about things. Another one item that sometimes comes up is in basements. If you have a wet bar, make sure that in the conveyances, if there's a mini fridge, that's listed. If there's a second dishwasher, that there's 2 dishwashers. So the one in the kitchen and the one in the basement. There's an ice maker that's built in, or a microwave or some of that. Make sure those are in those contracts. That way they're not missed. And that way that if you're the buyer, the seller doesn't take them with you. Or if you're the seller, there's no like, do they want the item or do they not want the item? Am I leaving it or I'm not? Make sure it's all spelled out in the contract, because it'll make life a lot easier. So these are my tips and tricks around conveyances here in Virginia. If you have any questions about buying or selling a home in the Northern Virginia, Loudoun County area, I'd love to be a resource for you. My email is below. My phone number is up above. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos that we have coming out for the rest of the year.